What's popping? What's cracking? What's going on? What's up? I want to talk about, as you see in the title, how I'm coping about black people. How the reality is that black people are a garbage species. We are the worst. We commit violent crime more frequently because we're just more violent people. We are we are agitators. We are the scum of the earth. We are trash people. We shouldn't have even that. You know what? Martin Luther King wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare. He had messed up. They should have never let us in schools with white people. Hopefully you're smart enough to know that that's fucking satire. But if you look at some of the responses in some communities, okay, when mentioning some cars backing up in front of me. Oh, they're done? Okay. Yeah, when you look at some of the responses they'll get whenever I mention, well, look, bad thing happened to black people, bad thing not happen as frequently to other group or white people, maybe something is unique about case for black people and culture for black people, instead of, black people are somehow genetically predisposed to being violent. Get called coke. One of my last comments on one of the other videos wasn't even about black people. I just used race-related issues as an example, and they're just like, maybe it's because maybe black people are involved in more situations because they're involved in crime more frequently. Basically, it's just a guy being racist saying black people they do crime more, so they're in these situations more frequently. I made a video trying to talk about race and IQ, and I was just kind of exploring some ideas. It does seem like IQ testing does seem to also map with income levels, which is pretty interesting in America, at least. And it can fluctuate different with, when mentioning immigrants, things change a little bit. But it's interesting how you perform on a test is going to fluctuate based on how much money you have, right? I like to look at things when it comes to race as at socioeconomic class. And I think does a disservice to black people, to be fair, because life is more than just your socioeconomic class. But you get white people really angry. Not white people, that's racist, right? You get people who don't care about racial issues as much as the average leftist really angry. Because, when I'm talking about things you can do to help black people, I was like, well, no one wants to help poor white people. And I'm like, I just want to help poor people. Most black people are poor, are under the poverty line. So anything that helps poor people will help black people. That's the way I can be logically consistent instead of just being biased for my own group. Even though generally people are allowed to do so. I wouldn't be upset if some German person was more concerned about the people in the German community than other white people. But, trying to be morally consistent important here. Logically consistent, too. But I made the video talking about race and IQ. There was a number of comments being, well, look at African countries. Look how poorly they're doing. No one in the comment directly said black people are dumber than other races. But that is the necessary implication of saying, in the instance, okay, someone's looking at me while I'm doing my video. Actually, kind of cute, actually. I'm distracted. Sorry, bitches come first. No one was necessarily saying that black people are necessarily dumber than other races. But when saying there might be other reasons for black people performing worse on different standardized testing, mentioning things like, if you don't have two parents in the home, if there's less time there's less time for parents to work on things like, reading. I mentioned the fact that when growing up, both my mom and dad were in the house. Reading to us was a very common thing. My mom and dad would have us do book reports separate from school assignments. Whether if we're doing bad in school, we do extra assignments or whatnot. It would be a punishment to do different reading assignments. Focusing on my grandmother would have us on the weekend go over. We had to do like little math programs or whatnot. Like again, like having a family that cares about education or can care about education. Because if my dad wasn't around, well, my mom has to spend a lot more time working. My dad would be at work like 10 hours a day. So, my mom is like, the mom just not working is the only reason that's available. We were still poor doing that. Now we're living on, even if you're living on food stamps or whatnot, you're living on assistance. Are you being taught these things? Having a family that happens to care about these things, who's going to teach my mom and dad that? My mom happened to learn these things on her own. I mean, but the likelihood of me learning certain characteristics in a bad neighborhood with only one parent, now I've got the whole community influencing me versus just my mom, or a whole community influencing me versus my mom and my dad, or even parents on both sides or whatnot, or grandparents and whatnot. There's just not positive influence. And I think that's valuable, right? I seem to perform better on testing than some of my peers with worse family lives than I've had. And that seems valuable. And it does seem like, why is it the case that when you control for income levels, just income levels, testing seems to be pretty similar across races? It does seem that other things that, like, in the likelihood, if you have more money, you're probably moving out of a bad neighborhood. Like some of the cultural implications of your financial situation. But I mean, white people that grow up in inner cities also test poorly. I don't think they test as poorly on average, interestingly enough, because there's variable reasons. I mean, you've got other groups that have different cultural expectations and whatnot. You've got, like, again, we talk about Asians, even in lower income situations, they still test usually pretty well because they're culturalized differently. But when you look at whites and blacks, they're culturalized fairly similarly once income levels are standardized, right? But that's cope. Apparently, all that's cope. Every single bit of that is cope. None of that's valuable. It is way too high. Oh, damn. It is way too high in there. Every single bit of that is cope. It must be the case that because outcomes are different, the explanation cannot be maybe early childhood has a lot to do with how you perform in school, how you view certain social situations, including work, interactions with police officers, right? Why are blacks less likely to? Why are they more risk averse in certain situations? Why don't they value education the same way? Not seeing examples of success. That's all cope. That's me not being able to accept the fact that the people that are parked next to me haven't left, and I also haven't left. But it's really annoying because I keep like glancing over, and I'm making a video, and I'm 7 minutes, and I'm not gonna stop making this video. I guess actually I am kind of done. I think I have said all of my points, right? It's just, if I try and say like, well, here's the and I'm not saying this is the reason that blacks do worse. It's like, well, this is interesting, and there's areas in which, at least from my own experience and as well as some data, seems like probably, maybe black people aren't just genetically worse. But saying that makes me a coping soy lefty cuck. So I guess I'll just be racist next time. Alright, if you like what you saw, leave a like, do subscribe, do a crime, just kidding, don't do a crime, and I'm out. Oh, now they fucking leave when I'm done with the video. They're like literally the whole time just. It's like, bitch, I'm fucking doing something, stop.